Welcome to the Sport of Politics with Joel Robideau on 1037 The Game, online at 1037thegame.com. We discuss the local issues affecting you and the Acadiana area with Lafayette City Parish Mayor President Joel Robideau. From time to time, we'll have special guests and always make time to take your calls. Now, time for the Sport of Politics with Joel Robideau. Here's your host, Dave Schultz.
All right, welcome to the Sport of Politics. Dave Schultz, along with Mayor President Joel Robideau, starting his Ironman streak, 3 shows in a row.
That's it.
Job well done.
Thank you.
All right, give us a call on the ropesopendope.com hotline, 706-0111, 706-0111. Special guest coming up, Taylor Barras, Speaker of the Louisiana House of Representatives, will join us at about 1:15 So if you have questions now and you want me to ask them, pass those along, and I will. 706-0111, 706-0111. Of course, I have my own questions as well, and I'm sure Joel can add to the conversation. It is, showdown time. We're 2 weeks into the special session now.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And,
yeah.
Okay, so what's happening? You are getting phone calls. Your phone is blowing up.
Yeah, they're taking votes probably in the next hour or so. They'll start the debates on the bills, on all the revenue tax bills. So, yeah, it's a pretty hectic morning. In fact, I'm surprised that Taylor has agreed to come on, because I imagine if my phone's blowing up, I can only imagine what his morning's like right now.
Well, maybe that's the whole idea. He gets a break from it for about 10 minutes, even though we may hear it go in and out with the caller, with the call waiting. All right. It seems as though we talked with Jeremy Alford from LA Politics, and he said the big potential raiser in revenue is the sales tax by a penny.
Yes.
How much does that raise, and does it do it fast enough? I guess that would be immediate if it turns out. Obviously, it'd be pretty fast.
The reason that's being discussed, I think, first and foremost, is because it has, unlike most of the other options that are out there, it has the most immediate impact.
Right.
But it also has the most difficulty in getting passed, because, it affects everybody. It's the most regressive tax that's out there.
Right.
Which is why we always avoided going up on the sales tax. And so, and when I say regressive, I just mean that, if we all go buy cleaning supplies, our working poor is paying, a larger percent of their wages go towards, satisfying that. And even though the state has some of the lowest sales taxes in the country, that's the state portion. When you couple it with the local sales tax, we have the highest sales tax in the
strange
in the country. So you could certainly make the argument, well, look, as a state, we tax you less from a sales tax perspective than most places. But when you couple that with what the local government's charging sales taxes, then it's no longer one of the cheapest. So it'll certainly be a burden on folks.
All right, we actually have some phone calls. All right, quickly, let's go out to Larry in Lafayette on the ropesopendope.com hotline.
Joe, congratulations on your recent victory, my man.
Thank you.
I think you would agree we have far too many universities/colleges in Louisiana for our population.
Yes.
Joe, in a perfect world, if you could reinvent the university college system, how many would there be, and where would they be? And I'll hang up and listen to your answer.
All right. So if I had a chance,
good luck with this one.
Yeah. How did he word it? Reinvent the world? Is that
basically? Yeah.
All right. But I guess I have to start with the universities. So I would say,
I guess which one it's not going to be.
And we can talk about, I'm going to limit my conversation to the public universities, obviously. You can have as many private universities as want to pop up there. But I would say regionally, you'd want to probably be in the 6-7 range, and we're, I think, at 14. So, we finally have started to do a good job of utilizing our community college system in a way that other states have for a long period of time, to have them become the natural feeders into the university, four-year university system. And if I was starting from scratch, then that's what I would do, because you wouldn't have the hurdles that exist. Even though a lot of those hurdles are just mental about the community college system. People want to go to the 4 years, and they want the football games on Saturday.
Sure.
They want the 4-year university experience, which is great. But in order to experience that, we need to make sure that our high school students understand the work that's required to be able to go straight to the 4-year. And if they aren't quite there, then they need to understand that the community college system is there as a real, legitimate, transitional higher education alternative to get them to that university, 4-year university level. And we're getting there, but because we were doing it so opposite of every other state for so long, to where we had open enrollment at every university, it didn't matter. You could go to the 4-year university and take remedial math classes when I was in school, and that's only been fixed, in the last 15 or so years. So that would be the solution, and then probably be down around the 6 or 7 4-year universities.
You want to name any that you
Nope.
think would close?
No, I'm starting from scratch, so none are
Right,
open.
right,
So I would say regionally, you need to have those universities in place.
Do you think there are any on the verge of closing? Because I would guess quickly
Mm-hmm.
that in some of these towns, obviously Baton Rouge is dominated by LSU, but in some of these towns like Nichols, it's probably the leading employer in that area, or one of them.
Yeah, one of
Yeah.
them for sure. I mean, you'd have the local school boards that are pretty big employers, and actually down in Nichols, you have some pretty big corporations.
yeah,
some of the
well,
boat, some of the
right.
boating,
Yeah.
and the oil and gas industry still does pretty well down there. So, but what you would have is, depending on how severe these cuts are, you're going to have some universities that all of a sudden that may be their only option, if not to close, to merge, and to do some things in order to salvage what they have. So,
All right. We got one more call. All right. No, we don't have another call. All right. Let's take a break. We'll take
All
a
right.
time out. We want to be waiting for the speaker, not the other way around. All right. So Taylor Baurat, Speaker of Louisiana House of Representatives, joining us next. Stay tuned for more of the Sport of Politics with Mayor President Joel Robideau on 103.7 The Game.
Folks from all over come down and celebrate our festival down in Acadiana.
Now, back to Sport of Politics on 103.7 The Game and 1037thegame.com with Lafayette City Parish Mayor President Joel Robideau. Here's your host, Dave Schultz.
All right, welcome back to Sport of Politics on Acadiana Sports Station 103.7. The Game will be replayed on KDCG TV on Friday. Dave Schultz along with Mayor President Joel Robideau. We go out to the ropesoapanddope.com hotline and special guest, Speaker of the Louisiana House of Representatives, Speaker Baurat. Thank you very much for joining us on Sport of Politics. Mr. Speaker, how are you?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm doing fine.
Are you doing fine? How busy are you? What's going on there in Baton Rouge as of today?
I'm in my office with my door closed. It's the first 3 minutes of quiet time in probably a month and a half.
yeah, and we're here bogarting your quiet time, so I apologize, Taylor.
That's okay. That's okay. We have a long agenda that starts at about 10 or 10:30 this morning on a lot of the revenue initiatives that have required to start on the House side. Have left committee. We narrowed down about 105 or 6 bills to about 31 that will be heard on the House floor today. Working toward the revenue side of this equation, we will also hear our appropriations budget, the first glance at it, with considering some of the cuts that were recommended by the governor, and of course additional cuts that were considered by our appropriations committee. So all of that happens on the floor today, if all falls like we expected before 10 o'clock. But that's the game plan.
All right, let's go back to the beginning of all of this. Well, not the beginning of all this, but at least the governor jump-starting the process. Ironically enough, when Donald Trump was in town, he may have trumped the Donald when he didn't say, we got to find cuts in cutting, non-essential people at schools or colleges or closing hospitals for a day or something like that. No. He brought up LSU football. I think it's politics of the theater, which is great, but I think that's what got everyone's attention.
I would agree. I mean, I don't necessarily, agree with maybe the methods he did it, but I think his message was to the citizens how urgent this situation is. And, when you have employment down and sales tax collection down and personal income tax collection down, there's not a revenue pot that we have that has not slid off in the last 12 months for sure, and certainly more so in the last 6 or 8 months. So, I mean, the urgency message was, I think, intended to be that it is dire. There are some cuts that can be made, but when you're 4 months away, getting to be 3 months away from the end of a budget year, what's available in all of these agencies is pretty limited to correct that kind of $900 million deficit before June 30th. So, while I would have maybe done it a little different way, I think the message was that it is urgent and we need all hands on deck.
We're talking to Louisiana Speaker of the House, Taylor Bowra from New Iberia. Joel, you have a question?
Yeah, and a question, comment, Taylor. I just wanted to first thank you because I know how difficult the position is that you're in. And I know that you know from the time that we work together that there's never a perfect solution. And so I want to let you know that there are those of us out here that appreciate what you're doing and understand that there is no perfect solution and that the House is part of the process and that you guys are going to do your best work to try to cobble together a solution that works. People are going to be angry no matter what y'all do. So you have to just, look to what's right and do it the best you can and know that you've got us and quite a few others out here that are behind y'all and knowing that y'all are putting in a lot of effort to figure this thing out. So thank you.
I appreciate that. And as you talk to folks and of course from whether it be local government, all the industry groups that could ultimately be affected by a lot of these changes that we do with the tax code. And of course, tax code is not the easiest subject in the world to ask everyone to sit through 100 bills that deal with about 14 different tax types that we have. So the response from the public has been, of course, concerned, but understanding that some decisions need to be made both on the expense side and on the revenue side. So I thank you for that because I think the balance will be the key. And, of course, when you're dealing with, in my case, 105 representatives that, may all have 105 different solutions to this problem, it is a balance that I work on every 15 minutes as a new flare-up. So I'm sure before I get to the floor today, we'll be trying to settle a few more. And I believe that is the healthy part of this process, that whether you're for or against revenue, for or against cuts, it's what, the public that elected us expects us to deliberate and get to that point. The solution, in everybody's eyes will not be perfect, but we're certainly wanting to save what we can before June 30th as it relates to both healthcare and higher ed. But at the same time, feel like we are scrubbing the appropriate parts of the budget that need some attention. And I think everybody contributing a piece to this solution will certainly help. And I think that will probably be the solution at the end of the day.
Well, and you used the word balance quite a few times. And the truth is, I mean, I understand the political side of it. At the end, if everybody's pretty unhappy, then that means y'all probably did cobble together a pretty balanced solution,
If I judge the temperature this morning, then that might be accurate.
Yeah, everybody's unhappy. That's a victory, as odd as it seems.
Exactly.
All right, we're talking with Taylor Bowra, Speaker of Louisiana House. So let's get back to the beginning of the conversation. Where are we with the TOPS program moving forward?
Well, I think it of course, higher ed in general, with 3 months left in their calendar for their fiscal year, was urgent. Not to say more urgent than any other agency, but they have a little more volatility with the budget since they don't have a protected pot of dollars constitutionally. So I think that was always the focus, was to hopefully secure that. And I think some of the measures we take today with some of the current revenue options that we have to generate revenue before June 30th will certainly help shore that up. And the TOPS funding, of course, economics has played a role on that, because we work off of interest earnings off of a principal balance of dollars, and that's also on the downswing with interest rates. So you have these multiple funding sources that have begun to suffer over the last 8 to 12 months, and TOPS being one of them. I think going forward, that will continue to be a focus as we work on the 17 budget when we get back for the regular session. So I think we were able to protect TOPS until the end of this fiscal year, and certainly we'll spend a great deal of time on it in the spring to secure it for the next budget year as well. So I do believe, whether it's parents concerned, students certainly concerned. They were here on the steps of the Capitol yesterday, and the legislators certainly understand that. The great program. It is improved our high school student performance. Students, start paying attention in the ninth grade about their academic performance in an effort to get that TOPS award at the end of their high school career, and it certainly has benefited our universities with maintaining those students while they're here. So it's a balance. I was with Higher Ed earlier this week at a meeting of their boards, and that was one of their questions: do we anticipate legislation regarding TOPS in the upcoming session? And I would say I think there's already 3 or 4 pre-filed bills for the regular session dealing with that. Requirements, admission criterias, whether there's a cap on it or not. There'll be various discussions in an effort to protect the program, certainly not to destroy it, but certainly to protect it. And I think the legislature will continue to work in that direction.
Where are you with the a penny increase on the sales tax?
That changes every 15 minutes.
Right.
And I would tell you that if that was the only revenue bill we were hearing, it would make my job so simple. But we have another couple of varying opinions on what you do with the exemptions and exclusions and things that apply to our sales tax that's currently in place. So, trying to get members who are not necessarily do taxes every day, understanding what cleaning pennies means and the impact of, whether you do 1, 2, 3, or 4, since there's a full 4-cent exemption in some cases, is topic. And you have bills that are attempting to do 2 or 3 different variations of that. That can either complement or in addition to, or if members are a little concerned about voting for a new penny, are they more comfortable voting on what we call cleaning up the 4 that are out there by taking away some of the exemptions is the balance. And it takes a good bit of time to sit and Joel's experience in taxation and certainly working on our Ways and Means Tax Committee understands that challenge in trying to get lay folks that don't do this kind of work every day understanding the financial impact of what you do, and of course with exemptions, the industries and individuals that it affects. So it's been a learning curve for a lot of our legislators. It is so significant to the final balance in this effort that whether we clean pennies or whether we raise a new one, it's got effect on multiple industries, and that's been the discussion for the last week or so.
All right, we're talking with the Speaker, Taylor Barra, joining us on Sport of Politics, Joel Robideau and Dave Schultz. All right, a couple of suggestions that I had come up with, the amateur
I'm sorry, Taylor, but I can't control them.
Politician that I am. Actually, this one Joel wasn't all that shocked at this one. What about a gas tax?
And actually that has continued to come up. The difficult thing about a gas tax, and still in an indirect way can help the state general fund. But gasoline tax, as we have it set up in statute today, rolls into the Transportation Trust Fund, which is for highway maintenance and repair going forward, which is in and of itself a great thing. And there's not been a gasoline tax in Louisiana in a number of years. So, lots of members surely will draw bills in that effect. There are a couple I think it's lost a little bit of its luster in this special session because it doesn't have a direct impact on the current fiscal year before June 30th. Certainly long term. Excuse me. But I think because it transfers into the Transportation Trust Fund, which doesn't allow the State General Fund use of those dollars, in a backdoor way it does, because it's funding that we don't necessarily have to fund over to DOTD for maintenance and construction, but a direct impact to the State General Fund before June 30th, I think, changed a few members' minds about doing that as an effort for this emergency cash situation that we're in. So the fund, doesn't give you direct benefit in the State General Fund. So I think that, and there's still a couple of bills out there floating that I'm sure we'll hear before the end of the session.
Well, here's the radical idea, so to speak, and other states have done this. And I looked, state of Colorado has raised in 2 years $135 million in fees and in taxes with the legalization of marijuana. To my surprise, it seems like WWL was reporting that this was either being brought up or being considered. Any movement on that potential?
I have not seen the bills. If there are any, I've been focused on the revenue measures, so there may be some out there. Not sure the appetite. I know there was lots of discussion in previous sessions in that regard. I would still say in our conservative state that might be still a stretch for us, but I may be surprised in the end.
Well, you and I certainly agree on that. I think it's a stretch.
Yeah.
All right, we're speaking with Taylor Barra, the Speaker of the House of Louisiana, after they're in special session for the budget mess. All right, so now, what a headache. You're just trying to get through this special session, but once you try and find $1 billion in revenue and cuts, then somewhere along the way, you got to find $2 billion. We playing Powerball, or what
correct.
are we doing?
Well, and part of the solutions that we come up with for 16 in the current year will certainly flow through, particularly on the revenue side. So if there's some revenue that we can extend, whether it be for 2-year temporary bridges or whatever the case may be, it carries us into the 2017 budget year. So if some of these revenue raises are permanent, as would be the penny, or if there's a sunset put on the penny sales tax, you would have the benefit of that going into the 2017 budget, while you still have the opportunity to work towards some longer term fiscal reform. And the Louisiana tax policy has probably needed a scrub for the last 15, 18 years. Just economics have changed, dynamics have changed, industries, with various exemptions and credits that they have the ability to take advantage of. Lots of that is kind of a pileup over the years of measures that were taken for various reasons. I think a closer look on the whole tax policy and tax structure is truly what we're shooting for. Can't pull that off in a 3-week special session. So I think going forward, we can't introduce any of those kinds of items in the regular session, but certainly shooting for the 2017 fiscal session, which would allow us to do stacked tax structure legislation, is definitely things that are beginning to be talked about. And a lot of these reform ideas that are floating now to generate revenue would certainly apply long term as well. So I believe with the revenue measures that we come up with in the short term will help us get a head start on 2017. If for example, if the new penny and sales tax would be adopted, it is about $220 million of benefit before June 30th, but it's close to $900 million in benefit for fiscal 17. When you're looking at a $2 billion deficit, that gets you halfway there. So you have those that can carry over, and we're hopeful we'll be able to structure it that way.
All right, Speaker Taylor Barra from New Iberia, holding down the fort in Baton Rouge. We appreciate your time, sir. Thank you very much for joining us on the Sport of Politics, and we hope to have you on again down the road.
I appreciate that. Thank you for having me. And Joel, it's great to talk to you. We'll get together soon.
Yeah, I'll wait till your life settles down a little bit, Taylor. But thank you so much, and good luck. And really, I appreciate how hard you work. And I have 100% confidence in you.
We'll see where we are tonight. That could be a new story.
Well, hey, yeah, starts today. Thanks, Taylor.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
we'll get all that translated by Joel. we heard from the politician, and we'll hear from another politician, but he may be able to put it into English. After this, stay with us on the Sport of Politics on Acadiana Sports Station 103.7 The Game.
Back to Sport of Politics on 103.7 The Game and 1037thegame.com.
Schultz, along with Joel Robideau. We'll see what we can interpret there from Speaker Barra joining us. We appreciate that. Obviously, I think that he sort of agreed with me. The 15 minutes that he spent with us was kind of like his chill time.
You're right.
Yeah.
That was kind of his downtime, which tells you just how awful it is for him right now. If spending 15 minutes with you is chill time.
Right. All right, so let's interpret what he said. I think that the interesting point for me is that as a Republican, he's taken a balanced approach. I mean, we've heard on the national stage, well, what kind of cuts would you take for revenue generators? $5 for each one, $10, and nothing. We don't want any revenue generator. And Speaker Barra is talking about a balanced approach. I mean, that to me, that's unique.
Yeah, and again, I've said it on this show. I've said it the whole time I served in Baton Rouge. We are not like D.C.
Right.
We're just not. And I do believe they're looking for a balanced approach, and there'll be some Democrats that think the cuts are too severe and the revenue's not enough, and there's going to be some Republicans that think the revenue raising is too much and that the cuts aren't enough. And so what Taylor's trying to find is that balance in the middle where he can get the votes to say there are significant cuts. And I mean, we're talking $2 billion. So there's significant cuts and there's significant revenue raisers. And how does he find the balance to where he gets the votes to pass some package through that, hurts everybody, but doesn't destroy universities, healthcare, or individuals or corporations in the process.
I totally agree with you. By the way, you almost stole my thunder.
Sorry.
If you get both sides hammering them, he's doing something right. Unlike a basketball or football official, if both sides are complaining, then he knows he's doing something right, which apparently he says, based on this morning, he's off to a good start in that situation. We're talking the Sport of Politics with Joel Robideau, Mayor President of Lafayette City Parish. If you want to we can take your phone calls again, 706-0111, 706-0111. It also did seem like, I know you said it was regressive, the sales tax, but it seems when he can say, look, half my problem for the next fiscal year, doesn't save me this much, it saves me, about 20% this year around, or maybe a quarter.
Right.
But when you can save almost $900 billion or find $900 million, $900 million, it seems like he's going to push for that. Unless someone in his response would be, for those who people are against it, find me another $900 million and we'll do that.
Right, and I think his approach from the beginning, and not just the speakers, but a lot of the Republicans' approach has been, we're going to find more cuts. And once we have that discussion, we'll be willing to discuss this additional revenue and this additional penny, but we're not going to do that as a standalone proposition. I mean, it needs to be coupled with some significant cuts that are long overdue, and to find that's the hard spot, because that's you're going to somebody and saying we're cutting you, and that's services, and that's it affects. There's a very direct, just as direct an impact as raising taxes on people.
Sure.
Those cuts have a direct impact on a lot of folks also. So
now, you were chairman of the Ways and Means?
I was.
Okay, so now that's the guy in the hot seat even more than the speaker is right now.
Today, the speaker's in the hot seat. The chairman of Ways and Means got all those bills out of the committee and onto the floor.
Oh,
so today they're on the floor, which is now where the entire membership's going to vote, not just the Ways and Means went through probably 100 and some odd bills and sent 31 through that they feel like some combination or some segment of those are going to be the solution, part of the solution to the problem.
Now, like DC? Is there someone in the House that is the whip that's counting votes? I don't know how you count votes on 31 different bills in
Right,
in only a couple of days.
There's not really an official whip position in Louisiana politics. There's certain individuals that
Sure.
you look to kind of as your floor leaders, which are in a way the whip, but not an official title whip. And so right now, though, there's probably a lot of people whipping on other folks to get the votes.
Now, I presume you got people on the speaker side
Mm-hmm.
whipping and on the governor's side.
That's right.
So they're sort of teaming up, making sure. I mean, okay, explain it to me. If they don't have the votes to pass certain things that come out of committee, do they even bring it up for a vote, or they maybe hold off on it and we'll see if we can bring it up another day?
Yeah, if it was that easily identifiable, then
Right.
yes, that's what you
Okay.
would do. Oftentimes, if you need 70 votes and you have 70 votes,
Right.
does that really mean you have 70? Because people saying that they're going to vote for it and actually pushing the button are two different things. And so, so right now the wrangling is to always try to get in that 74 to 76. Try to build yourself at least a cushion of 5 or 6, and trying to do it. For the Democrats and whoever's serving as that whip in the governor's office, and I'm sure Governor Edwards is calling people up to the fourth floor and saying, "Look, you need to support this, and you're going to have to support some cuts that you may not like." And then conversely, the speaker's talking to some of the Republicans and saying, "Look, we're going to make all these cuts, and those are a little bit easier for us to swallow than for some of the Democrats. But there's some revenue that we've got to combine, because if not, then we got to go and fill up $900 million more in cuts. So let's strike a balance. Let's figure out what a good combination is. And but like he says, it changes by the minute. I mean, in the time he took our phone call
Right.
to the time he went back out there, I guarantee you something had changed.
And if you don't do it with the sales tax, someone's going to say, well, guess what's coming next? Business tax
Yeah,
and income tax on individuals.
yeah, and that's not gonna
Right.
happen. But he's gonna. I don't even know if they filed a bill. Well, no, they did file some bills in that regard. What he had brought up was the clean penny, and clean penny just means, hey, there's a penny sales tax on whatever you go buy, and then over the course of time, we say, oh, except if it's for Mardi Gras. We won't charge you a penny for buying your Mardi Gras beads. Oh, except if it's for Habitat for Humanity,
Right.
buying lumber and oh, except for corporations, because we're trying to incentivize them to hire more people, so corporations don't have to pay. So there's 400 and something of those exceptions, exclusions, deductions. So a clean penny just means, hey, we have 4 pennies of sales tax out there. How about we just clean them and say, no, everyone's going to pay the full penny. There's not going to be any exemptions or exclusions or deductions off of that. And so, because right now, some of those pennies, we don't really make much on them at all, because we've exempted them from most people having to pay them. Not individuals, though. And that's where, so that's when he was talking about just cleaning up some of the 4 pennies that we have rather than putting a 5th penny on. That's the discussions that they're having on the floor is, well, before we put a whole nother penny on, why don't we clean up some of the pennies that exist and get more money out of those, and then maybe not have to vote on this additional penny. Now, the penny that they're talking about adding as a clean penny, though. None of the exemptions, deductions, exclusions would apply. So that's why it raises $900 million, because we get the full force of it.
Did he say how much the exemptions would be if he eliminated them?
Well, if we got, some of those are, some of those pennies, you may be to clean off and get $140 million, you may be able to get $200 million, maybe, they're not all the same.
No.
All 4 of the pennies, some of them are 2 are together, and then one's by itself, and then another one was added. And so like this 5th one would be a new one. But yeah, no, you probably, if you cleaned all 4 and didn't add, you'd probably come up with the same amount of, pretty close to the same. Maybe only 500 or 600 million.
Oh, that's it.
But not 900. But you would come up with a big chunk of it if you just clean the pennies.
Now you're almost. Now you found me. All of a sudden, you found me 1.4 billion.
Yeah.
Bam. And then again, you'd have nobody happy.
Oh yeah, no, there'd be a lot of people mad about the clean penny, because for a lot of the big major corporations, there's significant savings to them that drops to the bottom line. by having the clean penny exemptions.
All right, we'll come back. We'll talk more about the gas tax and the local issues here in Acadiana. Stay with us on the Sport of Politics. We can take your phone calls next, 706-0111, 706-0111. We'll be back after this with Mayor President Joel Robideau on 103.7 The Game.
Sport of Politics on 1037 The Game and 1037thegame.com with Lafayette City Parish Mayor President Joel Robideau. Here's your host, Dave Schultz.
All right, Dave Schultz back with Mayor President Joel Robideau on the Sport of Politics. Happy to take your phone calls, 706-0111, 706-0111. If you want to talk to Joel, we'll get to the local politics here momentarily. We did mention the gas tax, and again, I think both of you, maybe I'm more shocked that, wow, a level-headed idea from Schultz. Not a bad idea. He did say, however, it doesn't go into the general fund. It goes into the transportation fund. I'd say that's a good thing, and there's a lot of construction that needs to be done, and it brings jobs immediately and usually long-term.
Yeah, and I think the only point the speaker was making there is that for this limited special session and the time that's involved, since it's not solving really directly any of the budget issues, it may not end up getting any traction over the course of the next 2 weeks because they're so laser focused on what cuts to make and what revenue to raise. That'll have an impact on the operating budget.
So do you think it can go into the regular session?
Well, but it's a general session, so it wouldn't.
Yeah, general session.
So
yeah.
it wouldn't be able because it's a tax revenue, so it would have to wait till next session if it doesn't happen during the special. Because during the general session, you can't bring up tax measures. So the gas tax it's an every other year thing, the way Louisiana has it set up. 1 year's a general session, which means, you can pass general bills, but not anything of a tax fiscal nature. The next year is a fiscal session where you handle all the tax bills.
It's one crazy state.
In a good way. I'm sure you meant that in a good way.
Absolutely, it is. Oh, I mean, it is. I can't imagine trying to go through and finding all the different exemptions of which pennies belong to which companies.
You're right. It's the booklet that has all that is
unless someone likes copy toner,
it's a lot. It's a lot.
Gracious. All right, let's talk locally here. You had a big meeting on the no-kill zone for the animal shelter.
Yeah, well, great meeting last night. We had a national organization called Target Zero. It's a fairly new organization, couple 2.5 years old maybe, that has started the process of going around the country to what they call open enrollment, shelters where anyone can drop off, not limited, and helping them put kind of best policy practices in place to lower the euthanasia rates. And so they were here in town last night on their own dime, didn't cost us anything, presented for about an hour and a half what they've done in other communities and what their strategies are, not specific to Lafayette, because this process is for them to come in and do an analysis of our shelter and then provide us with a report saying, well, look, if you do these things, we think you'll be able to get to a no-kill status over X period of time. I've set that goal to be 3 to 4 years to get there, which I don't think will be easy, but based on the turnout last night, we had set up, I think, for 160 chairs. They ended up having to open the room behind us, put more chairs out. So we approached 200 folks that were at the meeting last night. It was very well received. I think there's a lot of energy from the public to get this done, and so the volunteer effort's going to be an incredible help. So we'll see where it goes.
How long does the study take before you get the report?
They said, if they come in and they have full cooperation of the staff and able to get the information that they need, their hopes is they can complete the review in a couple of weeks, get it in a report format to me probably a couple more weeks. So I would think in about a month I should have something on my desk to look at and start to analyze and see where the savings are and what I think we can get accomplished out of there, and then they decide based on our response to their report and where our commitment lies. They decide whether or not they invite us in to be part of that fellowship where they provide the services pro bono for free. They have a national benefactor that was something that he wanted to see happen, and so he formed this group. So everything is pro bono. They come to communities and don't charge anything. But once they would accept us into that program, then they would come in and help walk us through the process over the course of the next couple of years to get these strategies put in place and working correctly and moving us toward the no-kill status. So,
is anybody against this? What's the argument as a politician? There's always somebody against it.
Yeah,
What's
right,
the
right.
argument on the other side, if there is one?
Well, some of the strategies, involved the feral cats, and so you have some of the birding community that are fearful that by not euthanizing the cats and having them out there, then you run the risk of all the songbirds being killed and that kind of thing. The argument against that is that, well, if you don't bring these feral cats in, sterilize them, and allow them to just keep reproducing, well, you're going to lose a lot more of the birds than you would if you brought them in, sterilize them, and then put them back in their natural environments, because you would be limited to those 4 cats in that neighborhood as opposed to 8 cats a year later, 16 cats. We can't euthanize them as fast as they're reproducing. It just doesn't, history has shown it just doesn't happen that way. They're better at reproducing than we are at capturing them and putting them down. So, and no one really wants to put them down. So why don't we put a program in place to get them sterilized and solve the problem that way instead? So that's one of the groups that was against it. We've got to come up with some agreements with the vets, because if we're going to do this sterilization and we want to do it in a way that it's not the cost isn't a deterrent for people, so we want to be able to do it at a much lower price. So we got to figure out how the veterinarian community, can be engaged in that and can be accepting of it and understand that these people probably weren't going to vets anyway. So it's not like you're losing money on it because they just weren't going to sterilize their pets. There's things like that we have to work through. But overall, the response has been incredibly good. So I'm confident we're going to get there. I told the crowd last night, I'm not looking just to improve our outcomes and have our shelter be better. I mean, I want to have the national model. I want people to say, hey, you want to know how to do a shelter? Drive down, fly down, go visit Lafayette, Louisiana, and see what they did. Because that's what everybody needs to be doing.
Now, you have mentioned a couple of times no cost so far, with people coming in and making the presentation, doing the study with no cost. So somewhere along the way, there's a cost involved, I'm guessing.
Actually, there's a savings. I mean, I think what happens, if you get to the point where you're not having to euthanize all these cats, which, is probably one, besides feeding and the health care of the animals that are brought into the shelter, the more strategies you can implement where you have less animals coming into the shelter, which means then that you're putting less down, I think there's a savings. And so ultimately, less killing, less money. I mean, it's win-win. It's certainly worth taking a look at, that's for sure.
All right. Anything else go on locally last night?
Last night, there's always something going on, but I was involved with the no-kill presentation last night. So,
any movement figuratively or literally with the Mouton statue?
Well, we had that discussion on Tuesday night. No votes or anything taken. It was great. It showed the community in the best light possible. Greg Davis did a really good job of setting the tone to where, hey, look, whether we agree or disagree on this issue, there's friends of mine in the audience that are still going to be friends of mine. Let's have this discussion. It's healthy, and let's do it in a way that makes Lafayette proud. And let me tell you, it was a great night. It was a very passionate folks about the issue on both sides. But I mean, in 99% of the time, it was all done very, very well, and I was proud of Lafayette after that night.
All right, let's take our final timeout, final break on the sport of politics. We'll be back right after this to wrap things up with Mayor President Joel Robideau on Acadiana Sports Station 103.7 The Game.
Back to Sport of Politics on 103.7 The Game and 1037thegame.com.
All right, Dave Schultz and Mayor President Joel Robideau wrapping things up on the sport of politics. Thanks to Moses Jackson, Dylan Guillory, and Alan Michael, the Alan Michael Show, coming up next. So on Friday, the Cajuns with a win because Sam Houston State couldn't execute the pitch out properly. But what I found fascinating was the whole thought process on that. What if they do execute that pitch out at that point in time, and it's 1-0? Matt Daggs knows Tony Robichaux likes to do the squeeze. But Tony Robichaux knows that Matt Daggs knows that Tony Robichaux likes to do the squeeze. So I like to see the whole process. This would be a fascinating day to be on the floor of the House of Representatives in Baton Rouge.
Well, the name of this show is happening today in Baton Rouge. Yeah. I'm telling you, it is the sport of politics. If ever you had any inclination, you or anyone else, any of the listeners, to see how the process works, I would drive to Baton Rouge. I'd get over there in the next hour and just block off, the next 5 and say, I'm going to go to the Capitol, because this is the day where you're going to see vigorous debate on the revenue bills, on the cuts, and everything else. So, you'll see all the little pockets huddled up all over the place, talking to each other and trying to figure out what the vote's going to be. So it's worth a trip. If you like sports, then you're going to like the Capitol today.
Yeah, it would be fascinating because everybody knows there's not a whole lot of time. So there's a little bit of posturing, but not a whole lot of posturing.
Not a whole lot. And so, it would be an interesting day to attend, that's for sure. All
right. Want to thank Mayor President Joel Robideau for joining us again. We can make it 4 in a row next week. It's impressive. Just start calling you Ripken.
Yeah, I got a ways to go. And Ripken didn't have to put up with you. So,
true.
It was much easier to show up for an Orioles game than here.
All right, Alan Michael coming up next with the Alan Michael Show on Acadiana Sports Station, 103.7 The Game and 1037thegame.com.